Hi, my name is Mitch Stephen, and I bought a house every 4 to 5 days for over 2.5 decades. And that and $7 will get you a cup of coffee at one of those expensive coffee houses, but we might just be able to share a thing or two that'll save you some money or help you make some money. And today's episode, we're going to be talking about rental property lawn maintenance and answer the question, do you want to be responsible for that as the landlord, or do you want to give that responsibility over to your tenants? There's a lot to think about in this question. Stay tuned. So in this episode, we're going to assume you're a landlord for a property. And the question of the day is, who do you want to be responsible for the lawn maintenance? Are you going to be responsible as the landlord, or are you going to turn that over to the tenants? You're going to have to decide who's going to be responsible for this lawn and its upkeep. And then we're going to talk about the upside of turning that maintenance over to the tenants. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the downside of turning that responsibility over to the tenants. We're also going to talk about some tips that might solve the issues and the pros and cons of both. So in every contract, you have to decide who's responsible for what. The thing is, not many people think about designating who's going to be responsible for the lawn maintenance. Now, if you have a really sharp attorney and you have a really good contract, it might be covered, but a lot of times it's not. So why would you want the tenant to be responsible? Obviously, it would be great if the tenant took responsibility for this lawn maintenance. After all, you have much better things to do as a landlord. You have more houses to buy and more golf games to go perform in, and you just have a lot of things on your plate that you'd rather do than worry about this lawn maintenance, right? But there's a downside. Giving the responsibility of the lawn maintenance to the tenants and having that responsibility met are two different things. Just because you give the tenant the responsibility doesn't mean that they're going to do it. And the question is, what is that going to cost you? If they are responsible for watering $10,000 worth of landscaping and maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of tree value, and when I say hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of trees, it looks like this. If you have a 200-year-old oak tree in your front yard that's this big around and it dies because it doesn't get enough of what it needs, you have suffered a tragic loss in the value of this house. So I'm not just talking about the grass and the flowers and the shrubs. I mean, there's probably some trees that could be ill affected if they don't get enough water for a long enough period of time. So you have to ask yourself now, while you're playing golf, are you going to be losing tens of thousands of dollars worth of value in your house because the tenants promised to take care of the yard, but they're not? Or is it easier to just up their rent for some maintenance and you be responsible for the upkeep of the yard and the garden areas and the green belts and the tree watering? Now, before we get to a few tips on what might solve some of these issues, let's pay attention to that share button and that like button. Please mash on them a couple of times for me. And if you haven't subscribed, let's do that right now. Now, on with those tips. If you do decide to increase the rent but take responsibility of the lawn maintenance, there are two things you can do that might help a lot. One is zeroscaping the front yard. You know, if you zeroscape that yard, it will take very little, if any, water, and you'll have a low maintenance, at least in the front yard. The other thing you can do is add a sprinkler system to the whole yard or to the part that isn't zeroscaped. And this can be automated, and you can just have regular maintenance checkups by a licensed lawn sprinkler guy, and it can run pretty smooth for you. You know, when you do add a sprinkler system, you will have a problem occasionally. There will be broken sprinkler heads, and they'll have to run back and forth to do this, but you won't have to do it. You'll just have to pick up the phone and get someone over there to do it. Just make sure you consider that when you're considering what rate to put the rental rate at, because there are going to be some maintenance calls if you have a sprinkler system. All right, that concludes today's episode, and I would like to give you a free copy of a recorded Q&A call. My Q&A calls are held every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, and I'd like to give you a free recording of one of those calls so you can hear the tone and you can see the value that's being delivered on those calls. It is crazy to think that you couldn't get on that call once a week for a year and not be way better off than you were before you got on those calls. We have over 27 years worth of experience, over 2,000 houses worth of experience, and we're talking to people all over the nation about problems you're going to have if you haven't had them already. So we're talking about creative ways to proliferate in the creative real estate investing industry, and it's bound to save you money or help you make your money. But either way, this weekly call is worth its weight in gold. So to get your free copy of that call, go to 1000houses.com/free-stuff. Scroll up and down the page there with all the free stuff I have to offer and click on the little link that says recorded Q&A call. And that'll get it delivered to you and you'll be listening to it in no time. This is Mitch and I'm off to the next episode. Why don't you come with me?